So today we'll finish syntax and morphological changes in Middle English, right? This is where we left off last time. Right. You all have a copy of this PowerPoint file, right? So, anybody needs a copy of the PowerPoint printout or no? Then we can go on. So, last time we looked at this picture, right? We say that the case of stone here, which is stan in Old English, right? You see a lot of morphological inflections here, right? And stone is a strong masculine noun, we know that. And the pattern of the strong masculine noun is extended to other noun classes, including masculine weak nouns or feminine weak noun, feminine strong nouns, and so on, right? So you use the same pattern. You use the same pattern in Middle English, and you extend that to other classes, and we call that process analogy, right? We call that process analogy. And you might see in the same text, you might see like remnants like namen, and then you also see names in Middle English, right? But namen will be on the way out, as you know, right? Because namen comes from all of these ending an, ena, and then right? And then there's the phonological weakening of the ending to schwa, right? You remember that? Now we move to the next thing, which is pronoun, right? So pronoun, this is maybe towards the end of Middle English, and here you see only singular pronouns in this slide, right? So only singular pronouns, first, second, third masculine, which is he, right? And third person feminine, which is a she, and then third person neuter, right? Which is it, the word it. So what you see in first person singular nominative, this is nominative, right? I. So you see a variation, right, of ik, I, or ik, right, due to some phonological loss, right? You know that at the end, ch, we talked about that already, or k, tends to be lost, right? So you see a variation in Middle English. And then the accusative form me, and then the genitive form, you have me or min. So this is the ancestor of mine, the word mine, right? You might ask me, when do people use me or when do people use min with the n? The distinction is phonological. Let me switch to this. Let's see. Just like you guys know the difference between a and an, right? So a plus a consonant, right? If consonant, if the thing that follows it is a consonant, then you use a, right? And you use an when the thing that follows is a vowel, right? So me and min is the same thing. So if you have, let's see, if you have the word car, would you use me or min? You would have to use me, right? But on the other hand, if you have the word apple, you would use min, right? Min apple, because it's easier to pronounce that way when you insert an n, right, for ease of pronunciation, right? Just like the same distinction with rang and irang in Korean, right? Whether you have a pachim or not, kind of the same situation. That's what used to be. That's what used to be. But nowadays it's different, right? So this is based on phonological, right? Phonological distinction of the following sound, right? However, in modern days, today, in these days, how do we use the word my and mine? we do it differently, right, these days. Mine, when you don't have something, anything, when you don't have anything that follows it, right? For example, this is mine, like that, right? And then we have this is my car, when you have a noun following the word, right? But that's syntactic, right? That's syntactic in the sense that if you have a noun following the word my, then you use the form without the n. But if you have nothing following the noun, the word mine, then you would use the n form, right? But this is syntactic, right? So this is syntactic. But before it was phonological, right? In Middle English, in Middle English and early modern English, the situation was like this, okay? Phonological base, up until Shakespeare time. So when you read Shakespeare, for example, you see both me and min used together, right? Not based on syntactic criterion, but based on phonological criterion, okay? So coming back to the pronoun here, so that's the me and the min, right? And then in early modern English, the sound will become my and mine, like that. Now, second person pronoun, you see a variation between the thorn and the th, right? The thorn and the th, the thorn and the th, the thorn and the th, and also the n form and the form without the n. Same explanation as the genitive form of the first person, okay? And third person masculine, he, accusative him or hine, right? This is from Old English. And then his, so this is pretty much the same. But what's really different is the third singular feminine form here, right? In Old English, you have only the H, right? The form starting with an H. Ho, he, he. And then the SH spread from the north, the northern dialect of Middle English. And then in the, maybe in the last stage of Middle English, the SH won over the other form, okay? And then third person neutral pronoun in Old English, if you remember, is hit with an H form, But you can guess that there would be a lot of confusion, right? Between he and then the she form and then the it form. So people just drop the H, so becoming it as a neutral pronoun. Or else there would be a lot of confusion, right? And then you have the same situation for the accusative and genitive also. The next table is the plural forms. The plural forms, the we, us, ure, our, that's pretty much like Old English, right? And the second, if you remember, second person plural, that's the when you have you all or you guys, like that, right? So this is pretty much like Old English, but with the spelling of Y, right? With the spelling of Y instead of the yo, right? So you might see two forms together, Y or the yo, right? And the plural forms here, you see a lot of variations again, the plural form, right? The plural form of third person pronouns in Old English, they are all H, right? H form, starting with an H. But again, there would be confusion with he, she, or it, right? So we accept, so they accepted the Scandinavian, you remember the Scandinavian form starting with the TH, right? Tai, te, tai, tai, like that. So they accepted the TH form to avoid the confusion with the singular forms, right? So we see the rise of the TH form, and then the TH form won over the H form, right, in late Middle English. So you have the same kind of variation in the accusative forms and then the genitive forms also. Okay. And so that's pronouns and adjectives. Remember I said that the language moves from synthetic, right? Synthetic, in which you have a lot of inflections, to analytical, right? Which means that you use grammatical words rather than the inflections. But there are things that survive. For example, comparative, ra in Old English, where you put the ra after an adjective, it survived into Middle English, er or re. And then irregular forms also survive because they are so irregular that people use them a lot that they survive as is. And superlative also survive as est, which is what we have now. But on the rise was the use of more or most. That's the analytical method of marking comparison, right? So instead of er like this, instead of adding er, you have more or most, right? And sometimes you see two forms together, more, sweeter. You will see that even in Shakespeare, right? So you mark it with the er and also the more, the analytical way, right? That's on the rise. But all these forms also survive, but they became less and less and less used, right? Next one is determiners. Remember, in Old English, you have a lot of forms, right? Say, seo, that, tone, tam, and so on, right? However, in Middle English, you see that I bolded some forms here. So this one is bolded, this one is bolded, and that one is bolded. Meaning that those are the things that survive, right? So say didn't survive. It became te, which later on became the, right? Why say didn't survive? Because it's one of the two forms that has the s. You know the s? You see the s here? S, say, and then seo has an s. Whereas other forms have what? Th, right? The thorn. So they are not likely to survive, right? Because again, by the process of analogy, people want to extend something that's regular to something that's not regular, right? So the say form didn't survive, seo didn't survive, so s turned into the thorn or th, right? So we have te, which then became the, right? And then that became that, right? And became we talked about that in vowel change. And that survived into the modern day that man, that school, that book, like that. And then the feminine form didn't survive at all, right? And because, you know, the grammatical system is gone also. The grammatical gender system is gone. The plural forms, ta changed to to due to vowel change. And then you see tose here, I bolded it also. People add s and e to make it plural. Again, the process of analogy, right? Because we have the singular forms here, then people apply the s. S is becoming more regular, remember, as a way to mark the plural. So people add s to to, so becoming tose, which is the ancestor of the word those, right? So all these forms survived with the exception of the feminine forms. Right? And then because the case distinction is on the way out, so all these forms didn't survive, right? All the other cases. For the word this, similar things happen for the word this. So you have masculine, neuter, and feminine here, and then the plural here. So masculine in this column, neuter in this column, feminine in this column, and also plural in this column. Now, the same thing happened to determiner this. Let's see, let's start with the neuter. The neuter form is the most important because it's the one that survived, right? The one that survived. The feminine form didn't survive. The singular form, for some reason, it became similar to the neuter form, so they merge. So the singular form and the neuter forms, they merge, right? Becoming the word this in modern day. And the plural system here, the plural, which is the last column. For the plural here, if you look at the the even letter ME row here, tisse and tesse, right? So you see that they competed with each other. They competed with each other. And then the form that won over is tessi, tesse here, which became these, right? I bolded that for you already. So we have this and these, right? So I guess the reason why DC won over, the E form won over, is that people want to make the distinction between the singular form this and then the plural form, because number is important, right? So they lengthen the vowel to these and then this. So that one won over. And this is the final picture, right? So say and sail, they became the, right? For verbs, let's see, next one is for verbs. See what's important. Person, you know, first, second, third person marking on the verb, they survive. But you know that when they survive, there will be some vowel change, right, going on. Some vowel changes going on, so the spelling might be different, but the forms survive, right? The mood, indicative, subjunctive form, imperative also survive. The number also survive, even though we don't have the dual person anymore. Remember, you too, we don't have that anymore. And then the tense survived also, past and present tense survive also. So to give you real, not this one, but the next slide. So weak verbs in Old English, dental suffixes, these two classes survive. And then the strong verbs survive also. Suppletion, meaning you replace one vowel with another vowel, right? Eat, ate, like that, that's suppletion. So in Old English, there were 7 classes, you remember? Most of the classes survive, but some strong verbs became weak verbs, right? Some irregular verbs became regular, right? Even though the 7 classes survived, but the number was on the decrease, right? The number of the verbs. And then for other verbs, irregular verbs, high frequency verbs survive, like verb to be, verb to do, those things survive because they are high frequency. People use them a lot, right? So this is an example. So weak verbs, they survive. You see even the endings like hope with the E, hopeless with the ST, hope with the TH, and then there's also the S form, which is a variation, right? There's the dialectal variation also. The TH form is in the north, the S form is in the south, like that. So you see them competing with each other. And nowadays, we only have the S form, right? And they competed with each other until Shakespeare's time. And the TH form also is here, and then the EN form also here. So you see that there's a lot of variation, but basically speaking, the person ending survive, right? For weak verbs, and then for the participle, you have like ED also, right? Opened ED, that survives also. For the strong verb, the internal vowel change, let's see, this is the present tense, so you don't see that. But the endings here, drinke, E, EST, ETH, ES, they survive, right? Let's look at the past tense form. For the past tense form, the D or the ED, you see that, right? And then the person ending here, you will see that a lot in Middle English, but they are on the way out, but they survive into Middle English. For strong verbs, there are internal vowel changes like drink, drank, and then drunk in the past participle. That survive until the modern day also, right? But you'll see, again, N in the parentheses, EN in the parentheses, E in the parentheses because of sound changes. And irregular verbs like verb to be, verb to do, verb to will in verb to will, to want something in Old English, gone, verb to go, they survive until the present day, right? With the ending and with all the irregular forms like am, art, is, are, and so on. But you see a lot of variations, and especially in the person endings. Third person singular do do TH form or S, they competed with each other, right? Dialectal variation like that. But they survived in most cases, also with the past tense ending. Right? Like past tense here, was, were, been, and then do, did, done, will, would. You see this, right? In modern English also. New grammatical devices in Middle English. Articles developed. Articles did not exist in Old English, right? A and the didn't exist. Only a and an meaning one, right? The article system now, a and the originated from one, the word one, a, right? And then they from the demonstrative, say, or that. We talked about that before. They for uniqueness and definiteness or given. So this is what we have nowadays. So it started to develop into a complex system in Middle English. The of possessive, also an innovation, a new thing that people borrowed from French. In French, when you want to indicate possession, you use the word de, right? Like after the law of our land. So that's an imitation of the French construction de, right? Deepness of sun, deepness of sin, like that. In Old English, you use the genitive form, but in Middle English, this of possessive is on the rise. And prepositions occasionally follow objects. He said to him, he said him to, like that. The place that I of speak, I speak of, like that. You will see that in Middle English text. The present tense became common in Middle English with be and have as auxiliaries. In Old English, you didn't really have the perfect tense, but the perfect tense did increase in Middle English, as you can see here. And be is used as a passive auxiliary beginning in Middle English. So passive voice started in Middle English. And progressive developed in Old English, but rare. But in Middle English, this is on the increase. So progressive form like I am doing something, like that. And the verb to do began the explosive growth. It has 4 functions, like proverb. You know, he likes apples and I do. You see that in Old English. I like apple, he likes apple and I do. That's the pro form, meaning you don't have to repeat. You don't have to repeat like I like apple also, like that. So you don't have to repeat. That was in Old English. As a causative form, like make or have, as Windan tu did this soul his, you made his soul perish. So you know causative, right? To make something happen. So this is on the rise in Middle English. He had a certain of his night naked then and let's see, swim the water to the castle. So he had a certain night swim. So you order the night to swim. So these causative forms of the verb to do were on the rise in Middle English. Right? And negative and interrogatives also. We didn't see that in Old English, remember? When you form questions in Old English, you just put the verb, right? You just switch the verb. But here, you use the word do or did, right, or does in Middle English. So that's on the rise. And the final thing about syntax is that SVO, subject, verb, object, is the most common pattern, much like PDA. And you might see SOV occasionally, like subject, object, and verb. You might see that occasionally, like this example, that you this work, not neglect, right? It should be you do not neglect this work, like that. But you see SOV occasionally, especially in dependent clauses, clauses that cannot stand alone. And VSO is regular for questions and command. You front the verb, right? As in these examples. So we are done with morphology and syntax of Middle English. Now what we'll do is we'll read a Middle English text and we'll analyze the text using whatever we study, all the things that we study, spelling changes, pass this out, spelling changes, sound changes, syntax, morphological changes in Middle English. Your final will be like this. From Middle English, and then we have early modern English to study, right? To discuss next week also. So this is not, when you read, you already read Old English text, right? You'll see that Middle English texts are easier than Old English texts. Middle English and early modern English are easier than Old English texts because words start to look like what we use nowadays. So that's the easy part. The Old English text, the hardest part was to decipher, to guess the meanings, right, of words that may have died out, words that we no longer use, and the spellings are so different, right? There are symbols that we don't use. So that's the difficulty. That's the difficult part of Old English text. But Middle English text and early modern English text, they are easier to recognize because they are more similar to what we use nowadays. But the difficult part is there's so much variation in a way in which a word can be spelled. So you have to use a lot more imagination, a lot more flexibility in recognizing a word, right? Even though they look alike what we use nowadays and the syntax is easier and the grammatical system is easier, morphological system, like there's no say all that anymore. But you have to be more flexible because a word can be spelled in so many ways, right? E, O, U, or U, or V, right? So you have to be more flexible in recognizing the words of Middle English text, right? So Middle English texts are more similar, but you have to be flexible, right? So we'll read this one today. This text is from one of the Anglo-Saxon chronicles. You know, a chronicle is where people, a manuscript that people record historical events, right? That's called a chronicle, like Chronicle of Narnia and so on, right? Chronicle of something, of a city, right? So it's like a historical record of a city. So Anglo-Saxon people also kept their chronicles, right? But the chronicles were kept in typically monasteries, right? Monastery, like a place where monks and nuns lived, right? Because monks and nuns were literate people, they know how to write, right? So Anglo-Saxon people kept chronicles in different monasteries across England, right? 4 or 5 monasteries across England. So the Anglo-Saxon chronicles were maintained between various monasteries, as you know, and record the history of Britain throughout the years. But when William the Conqueror took England, remember that, and Anglo-Norman French people, Norman French people came to occupy England, so French became the official language, right? So almost all of the Anglo-Saxon chronicles stopped recording because they could not resist. They could not resist the influence of French. And also you have to imagine monks and nuns being replaced by French monks and French nuns like that. So most of the Anglo-Saxon chronicles stopped their services, their recording. Only one survived. We call it the Peterborough Chronicle because it's kept at Peterborough, right? So Peterborough Chronicle survived until 1154 in England, which is about 100 years after the Norman Conquest, right? Norman Conquest was in 1066, so this one is in 1154, which is about 100 years after. So in 100 years, language changed a lot, right? As you can see here. So we'll read this text. This is the last record, the last record of the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle that existed. But this is into Middle English already, right? After the Norman Conquest, after 100 years. Now this is from 1154. So we'll read this text and we'll see what it means. So there are 13 lines, right, in here. So again, you have to be flexible in recognizing words of Middle English, even though they look much more similar to modern English, but you have to allow some variation in terms of spelling. There's no spelling standard at that time. So in line 1, what do we have here? There will be some difficult words that I will tell you, but most of these you should be able to recognize. On, you know, on, right? Preposition. On or in, same thing in Old English and Middle English, right? So in this, in, and then this, right? In this, and then the next word, what's your guess? What's the meaning of the next word? Year, right? In this year, right? G here is palatalized, remember? Palatalized version because it's close to a front vowel, right? So in this year, the next word is a verb. Were is like were, but actually we use was, right? So in this year was the king, right? In this year was the king. Again, there is a lot of variation in how a word can be used in terms of inflection, in terms of past tense, spelling, right? So in this year was, so this looked like the word were, right? In this year was, and then next one is the, right? The, in this year was the king Stephen, right? King Stephen. And then King Stephen was what? DED? What do you guess? Was dead. Dead. 죽었어. And then the number 7. Number 7 is the word and. That's a shorthand. That's a shorthand because, you know, to write something down, to make a manuscript out of animal skin, that's expensive and that takes a long time. So people have to save space as much as they can. So the word and, A-N-D, that's 3 letters already. So just use the word 7. It's from the Latin et, and then 7 is like the T, just the T, okay? And then he was dead, and then what do you think? Be buried. And he was buried, you know, buried, right? Under the ground, right? And then the next word is there, right? Easy. So in this year was the King Stephen dead. So in this year the King Stephen was dead, in other words. And he was buried there. And then next one, his, right? You know his. And then wife, his wife, weave is wife. His wife, and, right? 7 is and his son whereon be buried at forest field. So his wife and his son were, right? Were, whereon is were, buried at Fair's field, right? So field is field, Fair's field, right? And then this is a subordinate clause, right? That minster is like a monastery. That minster is a monastery where monks and nuns live. That minster, that minster they made, right? That minster they made. H-I is the they form here, right? T-H-E-Y, they. So this is not late Middle English, right? Because in late Middle English, you are supposed to see the TH form, right, of they. So H form tells you that it's not late enough. At least it's not maybe the 13th or 14th century. So this is early, right? Because you see the H form. We study the H form, the TH form, right? And then Tha here is when. So when the king was dead, right? When the king was dead, Tha here is then. Then was the earl beyond sea. So I'll write this down for you. Then, so when the king was dead, right? Then was the earl beyond sea. But you can guess the present day English version, right? From the spelling. Then when the king was dead, then was the earl beyond sea. Sa is sea, right? So this is a rather early Middle English text, right? Because you see the ash form, right? The ash form is supposed to be R or EA, right? Spelled with A or EA in late Middle English, right? But here you see the ash form still used, so it means that it's pretty much an early Middle English text, right? Number 3, line 3, in other words, and then there's a 7 there, which means and. And ne, you already know, it means not, right? Not durste. Durst here is to dare, right? Not dare, not dared. Nan man, no one man, so no man. Nan is no one, right? So no man dared. Dawn, we study this today. Dawn is to do, right? To do over, to do other things. Do other, but good. Good for great fear of him. Okay, word by word. Done is to do, other is other things, right? To do other, meaning to do other things, B-U-T-E is but, right? We studied that last time, but G-O-D, God is good, right? And then in Old English, it's spelled G-O with a macron and D, right? But in late Middle English, it would become double O, right? Because it's a long vowel. But this is early Middle English, so you see the mix of form. And then for the Mitchell is great, right? Great. Ear is fear of him, right? So in the first 3 lines, it tells a story of the king who is dead, and the son and the wife of the king were also dead, and the king made the monastery there, right, where he was buried. And when he was dead, the earl here is like noble people. So the noble people beyond sea from where? From France, right? From France, after the Norman conquest, right? From France, and no one dare to do other things but good things for great fear, because people fear William the Conqueror, in other words, right? Okay, go on. Then is then, so this is from Old English. Then he to England came, right? Then he to England came, right? Then he came to England. So that guy, William the Conqueror, came to England. What's notable here is the way they spell the word come, right? C-O-M, right? C-O-M. Then he was underfangen. That's a verb that's not used anymore, so I have to tell you the translation. He was received. Underfangen, under is under, right? So he was received. Mid is with the word with. Mitchell is great. Next word, you should be able to guess the meaning. He was received with great, what is that word? Can you guess? If you pronounce it, you should be able to guess the modern descendant. Worship, right? Worship. So worship. He was received with great worship. So people respected him, in other words, right? So worship from worth, plus ship, right? So this is in Old English, the way people make up words. Remember compounding, remember that? From word plus ship, ship is the noun suffix, right? As in friendship, relationship, like that. So this is how people build words in Old English, compounding from word plus ship and becoming worship. The TH was dropped, right? But here you see the T, but the H is gone. And also this is an early Middle English text because SC is still SC, right? Not SH, right? Not SH, not influenced by French SH, remember? So he was great. He was received with great worship, and to King blessed. That's the verb that we don't use anymore. It means ordained. You know ordain? Ordain. Ordain is to become a Christian, to become a monk. Ordain. To go into monkhood, to go into priesthood, like that. So ordain. We use the word ordain, right? We use the borrowed term, not the Anglo-Saxon anymore. The king ordains in, that's the town, London, right? He was ordained in London on the Sunday. What day? Sunday. Sunday. He was ordained in London on the Sunday before, right, line 5, coming down to line 5, before midwinter day, right? He was ordained in London on the Sunday before midwinter day, right? And we are on line 5 now, and held there, and arranged there, and held the court there. He held the Mitchell is great. Court is court, right? So he held there a great court. Court meaning the family of the king, right? The king and his followers. He held their great court in London, in other words. Okay, going on to the next line. That ilke day. Ilke is the word like. That like day. Like day. That same day, in other words, that same day. And like here from the word ilke. So ilke in Old English, and there is the metathesis of sound. So you have leak, ilk, and then leak, metathesis of L and I, and it became like in early modern English, which we will have to study next week. Right? So that like day, that similar day, that same day that Martin Abbot, the high rank priest, the Abbot Martin of that town Birch, I don't know where that is, but that Abbot Martin of that town Birch, line 6, right? Line 6, should, right? Should, and then thither is thither, right? This is an old pronoun that you might see in maybe 18th century when you read Austen, Jane Austen, like thither, like go over there. Fahren is fair, right? You know the verb to fare? Fare is to go, right? Fare is to go. Just like how much is the fare, like that. So it's related to the verb fare, to go. Where he should go, he should fare there. Where he should go, right? He should fare there. And then Saturday, that's out of use, so I have to tell you. Sick. So he was sick. Then Saturday here, he was sick. So that one is an old form that we don't use anymore, so I have to tell. So he was sick, and 7 is and, right? And he was dead. He was dead. For, I don't know none here, but I know January. It must be one of the occasions in January. None, I have to look it up what it means. He was dead for None, January. So I will come back on Monday and tell you what this is. So January, and then that's must be one of the festivals in January. And right, TE is the word the. Isn't it interesting that you see TE here, spelled with TE? But you also see, like in line 1, you see line 1, the king, the form TH, right? The thorn and E. But here you see in the same text, where is it? Line 6, TE, D, right? So even in the same text, by the same writer, by the same scribe, you see a variation in how a word is spelled. THE, the thorn, and then the TE, right? Which is interesting in line 6 here. It tells you that there's no spelling standardization whatsoever, right? And people just write, I don't know, instinctively. And there's no seo anymore in this one, right? There's no tone, there's no tas, tare that you saw in Old English text 100 years before. So within 100 years, you see that there's a lot of things going on here, right? Munike is monks. The monks, right? So the monks. The monk in the days, in one of those days, like that, in one of those days. Okay, go to line 7. Chosen, right? That's C before it changed to CH, right? From the word chose, chosen, right? So chose over of himself, right? Chose other of themselves. Chose other of themselves. Okay, going on to, let's say, to line 8. You see, it's interesting here. William de Waterville. William de Waterville is Yehaten, right? This is a French construction. De is off. If you study French, the is off, right? William of Waterville, right? William of Waterville. So you see that the French influence crept into this text already, right? So the French influence crept into this text. You see the evidence here, the word the, right, from French. William of Waterville is Yehaten, called. The en ending tells you that it's the past participle form, right? It's called. God is good, right? Good. Clerk here is cleric, right? So good monk, he is called good monk, good cleric, and good man, right? He's called good monk and good man. Let's see how we are doing time-wise here. Okay, we can do one more line, and then I'll give you back the midterm. And, right? And, so 7 is and. He is called the good monk, good cleric, and good man, right? And well is well, right? And he's well. He's well. So coming to line 8, L-U-U-E-D, that's loved. He's well loved, right? He's well loved of the king. He's well loved by the king, in other words, right? He's well loved by the king, right? He's well loved by the king. You see the passive voice here, right? Well loved, ed form, and then the is, the passive voice there, is well loved by the king, right? Passive voice. The G ending here in the king, that's the dative ending. a remnant of the dative ending from Old English, right? But not everything has the ending, you see. Some things have endings, some do not, right? So which means that endings are on the way out, but you'll see some left, right? So language is constantly changing. It's not overnight kind of thing, right? But he is well loved by the king and by all the good men, right? All the good men. And right, and in Chirikan is church, right? In the church, and in the church, on the church, in the church, Old English or Middle English, it doesn't matter. So in the church, buried then is buried, right? Is buried. Tabbot. Tabbot is ta abbot, right? The abbot. The abbot. So the plus abbot, right? The abbot. Helice is highly, right? Highly. Highly. So in modern day, I think we say nobly. Nobly. So he was buried nobly, like in a high fashion, in a high manner, like that. He was respected. So I will give you back your midterm, but I'll have to go to my office first. So what you do is, based on line 1 to line 8 here that we study, right? Comment on the spelling changes you see in this text. For example, the use of the thorn, C, SC, the yo, the U and the V, long vowels, short and long A, vowel U, like that. So comment, do you see any changes that we discuss when we discuss Middle English, right? Middle English orthographic changes, right? We study like how long vowels with the micron change to double vowels like that. And we study how U change to O because of the minims like that, right? And C change to CH when it's palatalized, right? So we study those things. So look at the evidence in this text and answer the questions. And I'll be back in maybe 2 minutes. What sound change happened from nik, knik to night, right? Knik to night. Sound change is K is dropped, right? K is dropped. And then you can say that H is dropped also, but there's no metathesis here, right? So metathesis is not wrong. It's not right. To be, what type of meaning change has operated? Specialization is okay, amiralization is okay, because from boy or servant to knight, which is a person who works in service of the king, right? From just boy to a particular type of job. So specialization is okay, amiralization is okay, amelioration is okay, because it's better, right? So that one, people particularly difficult here. Number 6 is Arabic, right? Arabic is not Indo-European. 7 is Latin, so that's correct. You guys, number 9E, noctis to night. The change is from what? From K to H, right? From K to H, not from K to G, right? From K to H, right? From K to H. So that's fricativization. So 9E, from K, C is K, right? K to G, right? I'm sorry, K to H, right? H or X, but not to G, right? So for reborrow Latin words, like there's no genu here. Genuflect is not cornucopia, like that, no genuflect. The first one, the king killed Oxlock is to slay. Kill the knight, right? Object. So tone nichte. 16.2 Gefe. This is past tense and second person singular. So tu is the correct answer, not I. you gave my sword to the queen, like that. So this is past tense, right? Past tense second person. 16.3 goes into the hall. The hall is plural. I'm sorry. The hall is singular, feminine, dative. So that with the woman, right? That with the woman goes here is singular, right? 16.4, ate that loaf. Ate that loaf. So it has to be subject. So say Cheryl, right? Say Cheryl is subject. 16.5, broadness. Broadness, right? Broadness is very big. So broadness of what? Of the earth. So number C is correct because it's the genitive form, right? Broadness of the earth, right? So number C is correct. The earth here is not correct because this is already nominative, okay? And then these are supposed to be from the text, and the answers are different, right? Depending on what you chose. So if you don't fill it in, there's no point. And if you fill in a noun with a pronoun, then that's not correct. And if you fill in with a different case, accusative instead of nominative, then that's not correct also. So each one is 1 point, right? So and for this part, I don't know what that meant. E, A, B, C, D. I don't know what these are. So it's supposed to be like nominative, accusative, plural, singular, but I don't know what E, A, B, C, D were. So I cannot give points like that. So this one is okay as long as you have explanations, right? Not just give me the text. So if you have questions, or if we tallied up the score wrong, then come to see me after class, or look over it this weekend and then come back on Monday. Okay. So see you guys back with. We're not done with the Middle English text yet, so we'll come back on Monday and do that.